Today on History's Prototypes, we are looking at a rather unique piece of technology that was supposed to combine both the usage of a jet aircraft and a helicopter into one singular platform. This vehicle, known as the Coleopter, or Coleopter, the French name, was a revolutionary piece of technology that never really went that far beyond its early development years. But let's go ahead and look at the Coleopter or Coleopter. Now, the whole idea behind the VTOL, the vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, dates all the way back to Leonardo da Vinci. Now, of course, this was not a practical design, but da Vinci himself realized the idea that you could take a craft and have it be able to take off and go straight into the air. Now, it wouldn't be till centuries later that we even had practical flight. And even then, we still had the early invention of flight with the Wright Flyer. And about a decade later, we would actually get the first vessel that would actually get us closer to the Coleopter and even VTOL aircraft, and that's the autogyro, which was basically applying the earliest lift capabilities of a helicopter to an airplane. Now, the first practical and real helicopter is going to be this aircraft right here, the Focke-Wulf FW-61, and this is a really big step in multiple pieces of technology developing. We will see the movement forward of the helicopter. We will see the tail-sitting aircraft, which I have done a video about previously, and we will see the Coleopter, all developed from this one aircraft. But it's during the 1940s that this idea behind what we would consider more of the Coleopter is really going to go to the next stage. Now, a Coleopter is special from a helicopter in that it uses a ducted fan wrapped around the body of the aircraft, and the German Luftwaffe actually came up with two designs, the Lurch and the Wespe, or Wasp. And these use turboprops in order to create a high-speed interceptor that they could launch from pretty much anywhere in Germany to stop Allied bombing. Now, of course, this was such a new revolutionary idea. It was highly impractical. The Germans didn't have the materials to do this, so it never went beyond the drawing board. Now, after the war, the idea behind the Coleopter was still there. However, there was a need to change it. The turboprop idea had to go away, and there was a need for a new jet-powered. And it was actually the French that are going to be the ones to take it to the next level. Now, during the 1950s, the French were one of several countries that were working on creating a new type of VTOL aircraft. They wanted a fixed-wing VTOL aircraft that could utilize the vertical takeoff and landing and transition in and out of conventional flight at the same time. So they didn't want an attack helicopter. They wanted what would basically be the modern day equivalent of, say, the Harrier jump jet or the F-35. And of course, this is the 1950s, so how are they going to do this? So the idea is that a jet engine is the way to go. The turbojet can provide the thrust to weight ratio necessary for VTOL takeoff. Now, the United States had actually been experimenting on tail-sitting aircraft, and most of theirs were based on turboprops. So the French decided to go the way of the jet engine. With their C-40 Coleopter, meaning beetle in French, they had this idea for a new type of jet-powered tail-sitting aircraft based on those earlier ideas of the Coleopter that I had talked about with the Germans. Now, their design went through several years of development. They had to create a better fuselage for it. They had to create a better lateral intake for it. Even the struts for landing had to be set up because this aircraft was completely new. And it was going to rely on a whole new way of controlling it. And because of that would come the next problem. The aircraft was found to be incredibly unreliable when flying. The aircraft was actually only flight tested for a few months after its initial voyage in May of 1959. And by end of July of 1959, they crashed on its 9th test flight, nearly killing the pilot. And they decided to go ahead and abandon it at that time. Now, interestingly enough, the development had actually spurred the United States to begin developing their own Coleopter, nicknamed the Flying Barrel, from Cayman Aircraft. Now, while this design was abandoned, another design from Hiller Aircraft was actually developed. The Hiller VXT-8 Coleopter was developed for the United States military, basically to allow them to determine whether they wanted this aircraft or not. And the US version actually had a little bit better success due to better visibility from the design of the cockpit. It was also not a jet powered version, this one was a turboprop version, but it basically pushed them to go ahead and request a newer aircraft be developed. So the request was put out to have Convair make them their own Coleopter for the United States military. And this was going to be a wholly different kind of thing from the French C-450. The idea behind this was to go along with the tail-sitting aircraft that had been somewhat successful, like the Convair Pogo, but to create essentially a tank slash VTOL aircraft. This aircraft was going to have hard points on the outside that could consist of two turrets, on the sides, a center turret, hard points for nacelles for weapons pods. The idea was that they could equip this with 7.62 millimeter machine guns, 40 millimeter grenades, tow missile launchers. There was even plans for equipping it with a 106 millimeter recoilless rifle. And the idea with this would be able to fly into the battlefield, land, and defend a position against enemy armor and vehicles or even personnel, and then take off and move to the next point. Now, for practical reasons, this plan was abandoned in favor of a new aircraft for the Advanced Aerial Fire Support System program, and the United States decided to look into two new helicopters, the Lockheed AH-56 Cheyenne and the Sikorsky S-66. Now, interestingly enough, neither one of these helicopters would be selected, and instead, we would actually see the development of the Cobra, the UH-1 Cobra, in the meantime, while they went ahead and developed a newer helicopter that would be better suited for an attack role that would eventually become the AH-64 Apache. But there you have it, a look at the Coleopter, a rather futuristic sci-fi kind of idea to create a tail-sitting VTOL attack intercept aircraft that went through multiple iterations, but really much was abandoned within a 20-year period of its initial idea to actually practically building one before they decided that it was just not a good idea and they abandoned it in favor of the helicopter. Now, eventually, the VTOL aircraft will be developed, not much longer after the original programs are abandoned, but it's nowhere near what the Coleopter was. But that's it for today. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to talking to you on the next time.